Are you looking to scale your business overseas? Well, we're having a webinar on March 15th at 3 p.m. Eastern with guest speakers Darren Hutchinson of World First and Chris O'Shea of Meridian. Our experts will give you the tips and strategies for fulfilling orders to Europe and Asia, handling exchange rates, and more. As always, we'll be answering your questions live. Hope to see you there.
As you guys may remember, about a month ago, we had a really good overview about managing your sponsored products with Mike Ziegler. This is going to be a get-together where we go pretty deep. So as we've committed in the past, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So we've got some experts here in the room, and we're going to be taking a number of questions throughout the course of the conversation. As a reminder, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Teikametrics, and I also play the role of your host and MC during these webinars, so hopefully some folks do remember my face and my voice. So with that, let's introduce the group that's in the room today. So we'll kind of go from right to left, if you will. So Al, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. I'm Alistair McLean-Foreman, founder and CEO of Teikametrics. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar. I'm actually going to play a role of going through all the questions that the audience post. So I'd really like to ask everyone to ask any question regarding your sponsored product campaign, strategy, etc. And my role today is going to be bringing those up and helping Joe and Mike go through them.
Yeah, and just as a reminder for the group, we'll probably try and get to as many as we can throughout the course of the webinar, but we'll also do our best to answer the questions offline as well. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. My name's Mike Indigaro. I work with the customer success teams here at Teikametrics, so I'm pretty heavily involved with all of our customer work, doing a lot of sponsored products. You may have seen my name on some of our blogs, so I put out some blogs for us as well. So looking forward to bringing our conversation a month ago to the next level here today.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation as well. So my name is Joe Dube, and I'm working on the product team currently, but for the past year and a half, I've been working with hundreds of sellers on a variety of Amazon topics, but we've focused a lot on Amazon sponsored products.
And I think just to kind of round it out, I've got a good relationship, as does Mike and Joe and a number of members on the team, with Amazon directly. So I think that's an important thing to just remember, that any questions you've got for us, we're going to do our best to get those answered, but we do have a direct line into Amazon as well, so we'll be able to make sure we get you the best answers. So with that, we're going to kick some things off. Joe, over to you.
Awesome. So let's go through our agenda really quick. And Mike, we're going to first start with our going over campaign structure and configuration. So we want to make sure that you are really set up for success here. And before we dive into the more details, that structure is set up, that foundation of your house is ready to go. The second item will be keyword management. And we're going to really dive into how you should be getting at those keywords and what types of actions you can take in Seller Central.
Number 3, we're going to go into best practices for bid optimization, ongoing maintenance, a lot of really good reports in Seller Central to help you streamline your workflow. And then fourth and lastly, we're going to give you some key takeaways, a summary of what we have talked about during this presentation today.
Awesome. So let's dive right into campaign structure. So the first thing we get a lot of questions on is on the budget. So we'll get sellers will ask, where do I start? What's a good budget to go with? Like, what advice do you give, Mike?
I think when you're just starting sponsored products, it's obviously you want to start low and let the data do the talking, right? So once your campaigns are off the ground and you're starting to make a significant amount of money with sponsored products, you don't want your budget to constrain growth, right? So if you're capping out at $50 a day and your budgets are being constrained, you want to put more money into those to hopefully get the same, if not a better, return. A quick tip too is to look at the spend in your campaigns and see if there are certain products that need to be broken out into their own campaigns. We often find that if you have 10 or 15 SKUs in one campaign, one of those SKUs is is suffocating all of the spend on the others. So move that SKU out to its own campaign.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, because we can see a lot of the time that one single SKU is eating into all the budget. So, Alistair, we're getting a question from the audience.
There's a really good question here from Michael. Is it best to run an overall budget or an individual product budget? So sub-campaigns, I think, is the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend doing individual budgets for campaigns, because it allows you to get more specific. It allows you to reallocate spend to certain budgets that need it more than others. And something that we want you all to do is analyze your average daily spend to reallocate that budget based on campaign performance. So if you have a $50 budget, but you're only maxing out at $20 per day, use that $30 extra to put it over to campaigns that actually need that spend.
So once you've set up your campaigns, you've started with that lower budget, and you start to gather data and understand where your ACOS is settling in, that's where you want to make sure if your ACOS is at or below your target, that you're not hitting that daily budget, because that means you're missing out on impressions, clicks, and sales. So it's important, once you've set up your campaigns, understand the data coming in, that you're looking at those budgets and making sure you're not running out, because that just means you're missing out on sales.
Is that a fair assessment, Joe? Thank you. To say that once you've passed the initial test campaign budget, that if you are optimizing correctly, you shouldn't be really adjusting your budgets very often, right? Because you're going to handle the throttling, if you like, through the optimization strategies that we'll talk about later.
Exactly. That once you've established that initial base and you're comfortable with the optimizations that you're running each week, you should never be really playing with your budgets. They should be way higher than your actual daily spend.
Yeah, I think another way, on the inverse of that, it's a seller who is sort of setting and forgetting. That's the only type of seller that's not optimizing that would ever worry about budgets. So we highly recommend never being in that situation.
Exactly. If you're setting and forgetting, the budgets are useful to you because it caps your spend, and you may be inefficiently spending those dollars. So that's where budgets are helpful. But if you're actively managing campaigns, you never want your budget to get in the way of your growth.
There's a good question here from Anthony asking, should we follow Amazon recommendations for daily budget?
So I don't think there's a daily budget recommendation. There's a daily bid recommendation. We're going to get into the bidding in the next part of the presentation. So great question, and lead into the rest of this, this next slide.
Yeah, and before we go through, the other question we get is around, okay, I want a $1,000 budget. Can I spend that $1,000 every day? And what's the answer that we typically have?
So unfortunately, you can't generate search traffic in Amazon. So just by setting a really high budget doesn't guarantee you'll be spending that amount of money.
Yeah, and there's a specific question. When I bid $100, even or even $20 a day on a campaign, why does Amazon not use my entire budget? It's for the reasons that you've just spoken of. It doesn't.
Exactly.
You can't generate.
You can't generate demand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you've established your budgets, there's two types of campaigns that you can set up. And this is pretty basic stuff that we've covered in previous webinars, but we want to sort of set the foundation, like we were saying, and make sure you're set up for success. So Mike, what are the two types?
So you have your automatic and your manual, and the big thing with automatic and why you should be optimizing your product listings is because all the content that fuels your automatic campaigns, all the search terms, come from the title, bullet points, keywords, description of your product page. So it's, the goal of the automatic campaign is to cast a wide net of ads to serve the largest possible audience. On the flip side, with the manual campaign, you're getting really targeted, very specific. You're setting up individual keywords up to 1,000 per ad group to really refine the targeting.
Great. So we know that we can set up automatic and manual campaigns, but how do we structure it successfully?
Yeah, the one thing before we go into activity-based campaigns is you want to be splitting up your ad groups, by like products, right? So if you're selling, the example we'll get into is raincoats. You don't want to put a child's raincoat, a men's raincoat, and a women's raincoat in the same ad group. Beyond that, we want you to use activity-based campaigns. So set up your campaigns based on specific objectives or goals.
I think, Mike, sorry, I think to remind the group, one of the questions that we get more often than not, probably every day, right? Everybody goes to, hey, how do I lower my ACOS, right? That's probably we got to reset that, right? Because that's not. I think when you get to activity-based, I think you just build off of that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's going to be specific activities that your products go through on Amazon, the product life cycle. Starting with launching your product, you don't have reviews, you don't have sales rank. Setting up campaigns with those products, you might have a different objective, right? You want to get awareness for those products. You want to build up that sales.
So you may be spending a lot. Your ACOS may be much higher.
Right. So if your objective is to simply gain traction on a new listing, launch a product, it's that initial investment that you're making in marketing. You're not going to be making decisions in that campaign the same that you would for driving profitable incremental sales. So that's why by separating out your SKUs and creating ad groups and campaigns by specific objectives, you're able to optimize in a clearer, more concise fashion.
And should you be using sponsored products if you're doing really, really well anyway? Let's say you're on the first page organically for search. What's the logic there? Should you still continue to, this incremental concept?
Yeah.
How is that going to make a difference?
So absolutely, we encourage all sellers, no matter where they are in the product life cycle, to look into sponsored products, because you're going to get placement not just on the search screen there. Even if you are showing up number one, you're going to be showing up on on competitors' product pages. So think about how valuable that is. Someone is browsing your competitor's product listing, and a little bit down the page, there's sponsored products related to this item, and you could be capturing those sales right from your competitor.
And it's also, too, like, back to the competitor thing, it's all about real estate. So if you have one or two more ads than your competitor on page 1 or page 2, you're already, allowing yourself to be chosen way more likely than your competitor.
Exactly.
And I think also mobile, I think Amazon is going to continue to innovate around the mobile experience. You see what they're doing with Echo, the other devices, and just e-commerce is mobile. So the display experience there lends itself to sponsored products very well, and that's in Amazon's favor, of course.
Absolutely. You just never want to miss out on a piece of real estate that you could be showing your product to a prospective buyer. So then we get the question of, once we know what our campaigns are going to look like, we have automatic and manual, we're starting low with our budget to learn, and we've set up our activity-based campaigns. Maybe we have some to liquidate inventory, others to just drive that incremental profitability. We then get the question of, should I be running both automatic and manual at the same time? Is there a point where I should turn off an automatic? What's the take there, Mike?
Sure. I mean, for us, we employ this explore and exploit strategy, which is constantly using the automatic campaigns as this wide net, getting all those search terms, and then using the manual campaigns to exploit those good search terms that you're finding. And we find that the market's so dynamic, right? Customer searches are always changing. It's not like today people are only going to search one specific term, and that's what it's going to be for the rest of the product life cycle. People are searching differently because of a season, or they're out of a different country. They have different words for different things. So it's really important to have both of them running at all times.
And will you end up raising your bid? Is there any logic of competing? I mean, the answer is no, but we get that question a lot. I just want to clarify that for the audience.
Right, so there's no risk of, you're not competing with yourself. Amazon doesn't let you bid up a specific keyword within your own campaign, so there's no harm in having a SKU in multiple ad groups in both manual and automatic campaigns. But like Mike said, the importance here is just you're casting that wide net with the automatic campaign, and then you're really exploiting those winners through the manual. And we're going to get into those specific strategies later in the presentation of how you actually execute these changes within Seller Central.
And a part of this explore and exploit strategy is, going back to campaign structure. How do I create my campaigns, right? So it's all about creating this mirror campaign structure where if you look in this example, we have two campaigns, raincoat automatic campaign and raincoat manual campaign. Then those campaigns create identical ad groups so that you can, get into this strategy of exploring in the automatic campaign and bring those terms over to the manual. And you can imagine, some people that we're talking to have hundreds of different campaigns. You want it to be as simple and efficient as possible because these things, it takes hours to manage.
This is about just doing a little bit of investment at the beginning and setting it up so that you can effectively manage going forward. It's about saving hours of time down the road because we see a lot of items that are just named Ad Group 1 because it's the default name that Amazon has in there. That's going to do you no good when you're trying to go through this in Excel. So making that upfront investment and making sure you have your foundation sound is going to let you really exploit this program down the road.
There's an interesting question here from someone in the audience saying, I ran an automatic campaign and Amazon used weird keywords that were not even relevant. What does that cost you much? Like, what's the issue there? What does that mean?
Yeah, so like Mike said earlier, Amazon is pulling those search terms from your product information. So you'd want to make sure you're going back and checking your titles, your bullet points, your descriptions, all of those back-end keywords to make sure you don't have any irrelevant terms in there. And we'll also get into, you may also see some ASINs in the search term report, and we'll get into those strategies later. So we've hit the end of the first section talking about budgets, campaign structure. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
I think it's a good question would be what report should I be looking at to do the things that you've just mentioned?
Absolutely. So it's going to be all about the search term report, and we'll get into that right now. So before we look at the exact example, let's first understand what types of match types are available in Seller Central. So we have broad, phrase, and exact. For a broad match, it's the widest traffic exposure. So it's matching any similar customer search terms in any order. It includes misspellings or plural versions. You then refine the targeting a little bit and you get to phrase match. And on that example, you see that we can add, if the customer searched orange raincoat, the phrase would allow you to add anything before or after that phrase. And then on the exact match side, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just an exact match. So just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on those as we get into these specific examples. So why did we ask you to set up a mirrored campaign structure? So the answer here is that you want to be able to capture those top performers from the automatic campaign.
Yeah, and if you think of a funnel, right, you're getting all these search terms from the automatic campaign, and they come down through this funnel. You're picking out those winners, and you're bringing them over to the manual campaign. And why, we get questions all the time of, why rely on the automatic campaigns? I already know my keywords, or I use some keyword tools out there. And the biggest thing with the automatic campaign is that's the actual best source of keyword data, right, on Amazon. So these are search terms that people are actually searching for and converting on your products.
So really good question here from Colin asking, do I turn off the automatic after setting up the manual? And the other question he adds is, if he has non-performing keywords, should we do negative keywords or just drop the bid totally low? So there's two questions there. Do you switch off auto after you get the manual ones running, and do you do binary, completely switch off the keywords, or do you drop the bid totally lower?
Yeah, so great questions from the audience. Keep them coming. So first, we never suggest that you turn off your automatic campaigns because you're going to continue to learn from those. And when you're taking those winners and moving them over to the manual, it's okay if they still exist in the automatic because you may see different sort of permutations of that customer search term. If it's still providing you incremental sales at an ACOS below your target, it's a win. On the other one, we do recommend on bidding that you try taking bids down, and we'll get into a specific section on bid optimization, but before you go ahead and pause a keyword, it does make sense to test the bids at a lower rate.
And there's a question here from Mark asking, do you add the negative keywords into the auto campaigns?
Yeah, you can use negative keywords in both automatic and manual, and we'll get into that example next. So you asked what report you're finding all of this data in, and it's the search term report. So it can be a little bit confusing because it's not under the advertising section within Seller Central. So you'll navigate to this report by going to Reports, Advertising Report, and then Search Term Report. And you can set it up so this report will run automatically on every week, and it'll be ready for you to pull down, or you can pull it down at your leisure. So here's a specific example, and this is right out of a customer search term report. And what we're looking at here are, we've highlighted two green terms, excuse me. So this top one, if we follow it across, you'll notice that it comes from our automatic raincoat campaign in the women's raincoat ad group. And you'll see the customer search term is Patagonia raincoat with the keyword as a star. And what does that star mean, Mike?
So that star is going to denote that it is coming from an automatic campaign. So with automatic campaigns, you're only getting these search terms generated because you aren't bidding on keywords.
So Bryant in the audience is asking, would you run a broad and phrase match campaign at the same time?
Absolutely. So we'll get into the switching from broad to phrase to exact. But you having broad terms out there sort of acts like a automatic campaign in the fact that you'll be able to see different customer search terms that are matching to that broad term, and then you can hone in and refine that targeting and dial it up to phrase and exact.
Lewis is asking, Joe, and this is directed at you, you keep saying when you're staying below your ACOS target, do you have any recommendations on what these targets are? Would it vary by seasonality, or should it just be a uniform number such as 10 to 15%?
Great question, and we do hear this a lot. So when we're talking about your ACOS target, it's really tailored to your objectives for your campaign. So it gets to the activity-based campaign that we were talking about earlier. If you're launching a product, your ACOS target may be 50% because you're willing to invest those marketing dollars to get your product off the ground. But in the long term, if you're simply looking for profitable sales, incremental sales to your organic business, you want to understand your full P&L. And that ACOS is a percentage of your sales, right? So you can go down the list and say, okay, my gross margin is 50%. If my ACOS is 20%, that means I'm still taking home 30% at the end of the day. So it's really about understanding your P&L statement and seeing where your ACOS fits in.
I totally agree with that. I think the keyword, P&L profitability. I think it's so tempting to, switch on Amazon sponsor products, knowing that other sellers are competing with you, seeing transactions, but the profitability is the key. So it's really, ACOP, average cost of profit, that you want to be modeling. And we did a great webinar around profitability. We do a lot of content around that. It's just so important. The number of sellers that are simply focused on volume and top-line revenue, it's tough. I mean, there are just many functions that eat into your profits. So, you've got to balance some of the things that we're talking about launching a product, perhaps modeling out a higher ACOS early on, and ultimately you have to be disciplined to get to a profitable state. Otherwise, Amazon's getting paid and you're not.
Exactly. So going back to this example, if we follow this top line across, you'll see that this automatic campaign, this customer search term Patagonia raincoat, has spent $76 but generated almost $1,000 in sales. So that ACOS at 7% is really efficient if you're targeting a 10 to 15% ACOS. So what you'd want to do there is go ahead and make that customer search term a phrase or exact match keyword in your manual raincoat campaign, women's raincoat. So this is where it's very important to have this naming convention down in your structure set up, because it's now so easy to see where this fits in on the manual side.
It's a really good question here, and it relates to the real key question that keeps coming up in these questions, and it's not necessarily the ACOS target percentage, but how important is looking at ACOS with your total product sales? I mean, is it the right decision to look at ACOS relatively to the overall sales? And I mean, we've heard this before. You know, we've been working with sellers, and it comes up a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, we will go over the sort of flywheel effect later in the presentation, but these paid sales are going to impact your organic sales as well. So all of these sales help you gain conversions and gain visibility on Amazon. So taking a look at your spend divided by your sales attributed to sponsored products is important, and that's what ACOS is. But then taking a further step back to understand what percentage of your total sales you're spending on marketing is a great benchmark to monitor as well.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting attribution question, and I think it makes sense, right? I mean, it does make sense for a seller who's savvy and sort of really getting a pulse of their entire business to think of the ACOS percentage line as a total function of the overall revenue of that product or product group.
Sure. And
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too is conversion rate is huge. So if you're not doing the things to manage your campaigns and pay attention to all these little efficiencies, you know, if you have a rising ACOS over 100%, you know, that is potentially going to have a negative impact on your sales rank, right? So if your you know, your ACOS is nearing 100%, it's going to have the reverse effect.
I like this question here too from Dan. How valid do you think Amazon's standard attribution of 1 week, all products, how valid is the standard attribution of 1 week as a measurement of ACOS versus a shorter period or direct product sales? And I think that's the key to how they're calculating the conversion. Have we got any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think some sellers with a lower price products, it makes sense to look at that, not the 7-day period, but the 1-day period, because you want to see if they're making that sale they're capturing that sale right away. If you have a larger ticket item, it does make sense that a customer may browse that and have a longer cycle to then purchase.
I think it's just a broader problem in pay-per-click modeling overall. You know, whether you're talking Facebook, you know, Google, Amazon. So there's that other thing to take into account. Yeah, the attribution, that makes sense.
And then just wrapping up on this example here, if we look at the bottom line where it says women waterproof jacket, you'll see this term, again from an automatic campaign, has way fewer impressions than the others in this group. The top line having over 60,000, this one having 400. But it's resulted in 2 sales. So you can see of the 3 people that clicked it, 2 people purchased it. So that means it's a highly relevant term, and you don't ever want to be in a place where you're not showing up if someone's searching that term because it's been so successful for you. So you can see the volume is very low, but it's so relevant that you want to make sure you're taking that customer search term from the automatic side and moving it over to manual and dialing up the bid there so you're always showing up if that search term is entered into Amazon.
And the tip that we want to give you all here is if you look at the customer search term column, you're going to notice a few ASINs there. When you see an ASIN as a search term, that means your ad was displayed on competitor product page. There's not a lot that you can do to reduce that spend. So for these 2 examples, you have one that's spending $48 without having any sort of return. Unfortunately, you can't add that as a negative keyword to your campaign, but you can learn about, you know, what that product is. You know, take that ASIN, search it on Amazon, and see, you know, maybe it's a competitor. Maybe you have things in your product listing, in your title or your keywords that are driving your traffic to a competitor's, right? So, and if there are things that it's you know working well, that second example, also look, you know, what is working well in that product that you can use for your own.
Right, so it's good competitor sort of reconnaissance to go in and see what ASINs you're showing up on, and if you're performing well, see what you can take from that listing. And if you're doing poorly, you want to make sure you're not putting in keywords into your organic listing that are irrelevant.
It's a really good question here from Eva that I think is just more of an overall thought point. Is it normal to have PPC campaigns that do well for 1 week and really bad the next? And she's mentioning it's not consistent. What type of cadence should you be looking at the spreadsheet that you've got up? How do you manage this? How often do you need to look at it?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of noise in this data, day to day, even week to week. So we typically recommend looking at a trailing 30-day window, because that sort of smooths out the day-to-day or week-to-week noise. And this report here, the search term report, is actually a trailing 60-day view from Amazon, and you don't have the ability to toggle the dates there. So you're looking back over 2 months, so it will give you a good read on the actual performance.
And then should you be looking at that trailing, once a week, every day, multiple times a day, once a month?
Yeah, I think multiple times a day is a bit overkill, and you could probably really start spinning if you're doing that. But getting in there at least once a week is what we recommend, and spending some quality time downloading these reports and doing some analysis. So we just talked about moving from automatic to manual and showed you those 2 examples, but you don't want to stop there. So once you get an item from an automatic into a manual, your work's not done yet.
Right, it's all about refining your targeting. So we'll walk through this example as we've done in the last couple of slides, but if you look at the first example, so we start an automatic campaign. The original search term is women's raincoat. So you find that search term is doing particularly well. So you want to take that and bring it over to the manual campaign as a phrase match type keyword. Fast forward maybe a week, 2 weeks, now you're starting to see that people are searching orange women's raincoat. That has a very good ACOS, a lot less competition on that. So you want to add that as an exact match type keyword. So from left to right, you're just refining your targeting, and what you're also doing is, as you move from broad to phrase to exact, you are lessening the competition for those terms, and you're putting yourself at a better position to not overspend on thousands of terms that are matching to broad and phrase is a little bit less, but you're opening yourself up to be indefensible sometimes.
Right. Once you've identified those terms that convert really well and you've moved them all the way through to the exact match type, you can then turn the spend really up. So you're guaranteeing that you're going to be showing up on those searches because you know they work well. So you never want to be in a case we are missing out on those impressions and clicks because you're not in here doing this work.
And Joe, when you say turn the spend up, what does that mean? How many increments? What percentages?
Sure. Yeah, I'm talking about the bidding strategies, and that's the next section that we'll hit on. But when you see something that works well, you don't want to just leave it as is. You want to continue to bid up, and you can set up a set of business rules and say, each week I'm going to continue to increase as long as the ACOS is under my 15% target. That way, you're ensuring that you're sort of protecting yourself against the competition, and other people who are coming in and bidding on those keywords won't be matching you if you're still performing well. So going back to the example here, we've gone through and moved from automatic to manual, talked about how in a manual campaign you can move from broad to phrase to exact, and that's all talking about the good top performers, the key winners. But there's another whole side to the equation, right? There's all of this wasted spend. So you really want to minimize all of the money that you're just throwing away. And you're going to throw away money if you're not actively managing these campaigns. Because those automatic campaigns cast such a broad net, there's going to be some terms in there that don't convert for you. And if you're not in there going in and turning these as negative keywords, you're going to be spending money on terms that don't convert to sales.
Right, so take the first highlighted box, rain poncho. You're selling a raincoat. Most likely people that are looking for ponchos aren't going to convert for a raincoat, right? Different type of product, different price point. If you go across to the data, you're going to find that we've spent $71 from the date range, first day of impression to last day of impression, from December 19th to January 20th. So the end of impression date is really important because that's going to show us if that term is still live or we've already added it as a negative.
Right. So we recommend pulling down this customer search term, this customer search term report at least once per week, sorting it on spend, and then filtering where you're not seeing sales. And you'll be able to see a list in Excel of all of the money that you've spent that hasn't generated a single sale. And then you'll want to also look at the last day of impression, because it's clear here that we've already turned off that rain poncho term. So that's a good thing. We saw this, we let it run for a month, and then on 120, that was added as a negative keyword, so the spend stopped there, and we didn't continue to put money into a loser.
So stop entirely. This is coming up a lot in the questions. Not reduce the bid. Stop it entirely.
So in an automatic campaign, you don't have the bidding at the keyword level. So yes, you're going to be adding that negative keyword and stopping the spend before that customer search term. On the manual side, we'll get to that example now. So you can see on the manual raincoat campaign in the children's raincoat, there's a customer search term that says rain jackets for men, and it's serving up against the keyword rain jackets that's broad. So because that keyword rain jackets is broad, it's pulling in a sort of irrelevant term for a children's coat because it has for men at the end. So what you can do within manual campaigns is add that customer search term as a negative, and it will make the rest of that broad keyword a lot more productive, because you're taking away rain jackets for men, but you're still allowing that keyword to work as the broad match type.
Yeah, and it's an interesting discussion because you're still making sales, right? But at a very high ACOS. So you have to kind of look at what the balance is. What other options are there? Can you, because you don't want to just stop those sales, right? You are getting sales for rain jackets for men.
Right. So through negative keywords in manual campaigns, you can make your broad match type keywords a lot more efficient by getting rid of those customer search terms that map to that broad keyword that aren't resulting in sales. So that's taking us through the keyword section of the presentation. Alistair, any questions?
There's one question here from Eva. When you add when you do the negative keywords, is it negative exact or phrase? Just a clarification on. We're going, I want to highlight as well. We're sending out a recording for this, and there's just so much good stuff, guys. And the audience, I've never seen so many questions. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great question. So there's a couple things you can think about there. For that example, rain jackets for men, you would do that as an exact negative. But if you look up and you say, okay, I never want to serve up on the rain poncho example, I never want to serve a term that's related to poncho in any way. I don't want to serve against men's poncho, children's poncho, anything with the poncho phrase in it. Then I would add it as a negative phrase so that I would never serve anything with anything before or after.
Right, and that's back to the point that, a question that was asked earlier on, what should I do to be, reducing those things. It's that exactly.
So is there some, that's just more than Excel then in this scenario. You're actually thinking about, you have to use some intuition.
It's definitely an art and a science, right? So you want to be not blindly making these changes, but there is some business logic to think about when you're adding in these negative keywords.
So we've gone through campaign creation, budgets, keywords. Now we're going to get into bid optimization. We touched on it a little bit, but Joe, I think this one you can speak really passionately about as it relates a little bit to the stock market. Why does bid optimization matter?
Yeah, so I encourage customers to think about keywords as a stock, right? You don't want to continue to be spending money and bidding on losers, right? You want to put your money behind those top performers and reduce the spend on those that aren't performing well. So the performance is really how we recommend you make your bid optimizations on. There's going to be in Seller Central a recommended range to get on that first page, but that doesn't relate to how that keyword is performing for you. It's simply telling you if you want to show up on the first page, this is what you have to bid. But we want to be looking back again on that 30-day period and say, how has it performed for me? Is it converting into sales? If yes, let's continue to spend there and turn that bid up.
Yeah, and the market is really volatile. It's active and always changing. So you may raise bids this week, but find that, okay, that was too much. Now I have to go back and lower those investments so that you're playing the field the right way.
So the stock market analogy is really, it's a good one, Joe. I like it a lot. But from a seller standpoint, what happens if the overall market price is rising because everyone else is bidding against you? I mean, what do you do? What's the sort of end game over time? I mean, should you put all your products into sponsor products? I mean, like, what's that going to do to your overall profitability? I mean, as a seller listening to this, we've covered a lot of stuff. If you know that there are other sellers also doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the people who have been doing sponsored products for years are going to have, luckily, captured those really low cost per clicks. But as more people enter the market, price is going to go up, and the only way that you can sort of combat that is to take these steps that we're talking about and making sure that you're lowering your wasted spend and increasing the spend on those that are winning for you.
But it is true, too, that bids isn't the end game, right? Just because I have a $5 bid and you have a $4 bid doesn't mean that I'm going to be placed ahead of you.
Right, so there's other factors that Amazon takes into account, and that's around how closely related your product is to the keyword and how well your product converts. So it's not purely the bid, they're looking at other aspects as well.
So now let's get into the specific bidding strategies. So we've talked about ACOS targets. You know, what we want you to be doing is capture the most impressions and clicks by, you know, looking to see if your ACOS is less than your target. So your, you know, your target's 15% and your ACOS is 5%. You want to be increasing your bid because you want to double down on that investment. On the other side, if ACOS is greater than your target, so now your ACOS is 25% and your target's 15%, you want to be lowering those bids. You're overspending and not getting the ROI that you've intended, right? So lowering your bids allows your products to be placed in different locations.
Yeah, and this gets to the question that came in earlier of, you know, don't just give up right away on a search term and pause it. You can test down and continue to lower that bid to see if those lower CPCs still deliver incremental sales at a rate that's more favorable.
Steve's asking about Bid Plus. What's that?
Sure. So Bid Plus is something that gives Amazon some more flexibility with your bids, and it allows them to flex up your bid in order to get onto the first page.
So should you use it?
It depends on how much control you want over your actual bids. I mean, we recommend if you're in here making changes weekly that you don't really need Bid Plus, but if you're in the more of exploring phase, you can see if that works for you.
And, you know, adjusting bids at the manual campaign is great, but also think about adjusting bids at the default level on the automatic campaigns.
Right.
With bids for automatic campaigns set at the ad group level, you may not be getting the impressions for some of those more competitive search terms. So if you have that blanket default bid of 25 cents, you may have some underperformers in there that really need a jolt in a manual campaign. And on the other side, too, if your bids are set too high in the automatic campaigns, you're potentially overspending there.
Tactical question from John. By which increment should we lower or raise the bids?
I mean, again, it's going to be about what works for your business. I definitely recommend, you know, anywhere between 10 to 15% to start, and then start to see, you know, if you lower it by 15% this week, see what the impact is the following week. And it's kind of like finding that balance. And you'll get to that point where you find, like, okay, 20% is the optimal lever that I need to pull each week.
Yeah, and I recommend getting aggressive on the bid ups because those are your top performers. So you may decide to say, let's lower my bids on my poor performers by 10 or 15%, but let's go ahead and increase my top performers by 25 to 50% because you never want to miss out on those winners.
I think that's an interesting point to build on. It's a window in time, right? Like, and you know, your experience, Joe, Mike, your experience with our customers is that if you were to do what Joe said, which I advocate for as well, 25 big numbers, big increases to capture it, because eventually, I guess the competition is going to catch up. Is that your experience?
Yeah, and if you get into a habit of doing this each week, you're not really at risk of, if you're increasing the bids on those winners, you're monitoring this each week. So if you see that your ACOS then starts to go up above your target, you can then bring your bids back down. So it's all about staying disciplined and making these, doing this analysis and making these changes each week, and you get into a good rhythm.
Jacob's saying, and I think that's along the same lines, what is the best way to double down? Just to keep increasing the bid if you see converting?
Absolutely. So it's increasing bids, and then again, going back to our keyword example is, look, don't just get lazy about your broad keywords. Make sure you're looking at that search term report and pulling out opportunities to go from broad to phrase to exact, so that you're really picking out those winners and you're consistently showing up.
And when you say, and this is from Kitty, when you say increase bids on winners, do you mean above the Amazon recommended bid as well?
Absolutely. So again, that's just a recommendation in a range, and they used to have a different column in there that they called the estimated page one bid. We found that to not be very accurate. They've moved to this range. Again, and it's just a suggestion and a guess on their part. So absolutely, there's no harm in those top performers having your bid be above that range. That's just ensuring that you're staying above the market.
Yeah, and typically if your bid is, quite high, most times you're not going to actually be charged for that bid.
Right. So there's a difference between your max bid and your actual cost per click. So you'll get to a point where maybe you don't increase above $3 or above $5 because your CPC is only 25 cents. So you're finding that it may not be as competitive as a term. So even though you have your max bid at $3, you're only spending 25 cents per click there.
Dan has a question, and this is one that we've talked about before, and I think it's very important. How do you feel about adding keywords to your product search terms, and also in the sort of the concept of harvesting external keywords? Can you saturate the search terms field with unrelated terms? The idea here is that there are a lot of tools out there that profess to have, the secret sauce to stuff into these campaigns. What are our thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't put much stock in it. I think the real value is doing your homework and setting up these automatic campaigns and pulling the successful keywords from there, because as Mike was talking about earlier, that's what people are actually entering into Amazon. So you can use as many external tools as you want, but the real answer is in the data.
Yeah, let the data do the work for you. I think it's the easiest way to approach it.
Even early on? How does Amazon know about your products?
Yeah, through the information in your title and your bullet points and your description and what category you're in, and it will match you to like products. I mean, there's no harm in testing keywords on the manual side. You can put up to 1,000 keywords into an ad group, but I would caution wasting too much time in doing that initially, because you'll notice that long tail, you won't get impressions and clicks.
Yeah,
there.
statistically we've proven that, right? Like there's just a lot less value in that. I mean, you've got 55%. The data machine that Amazon's running has got 55% of US retail e-commerce searches are on Amazon. There's a A9 algorithm is what's powering this. It's effectively the most powerful generator of conversion.
Exactly.
So as long as you've got conversion, that's going to really drive the bulk of the optimization efforts.
Yeah, and I would just be cautious about thinking that some external keyword tool is really a magic bullet, because there's really no secret answer out there that some third-party site can tell you. So put your stock in the actual data that's coming back from Amazon. That's what people are typing in, and that's how they're getting led to your products.
So building off of that, here's a few examples of where we'd want you to increase bids, where we'd want you to decrease bids. So if we started with a keyword that had a 5% ACOS and drove $100 in sales, if your target ACOS is 10 or 15%, we want you to increase that bid, double down on that investment. A 10% ACOS that drives $1,000 in sales seems a lot better, to me personally. Doing it that way. What are your thoughts on it?
Exactly. I mean, I think this gets to don't get complacent if you see an ACOS that's low, because just because you feel good about that 5% ACOS, you could be doing more.
Right. And on the other side, decreasing bids, it's not a winner-take-all game, right? So the best bid doesn't win first place. Paying for first page placement may not be profitable for you, and we've seen that customers are successful getting impressions and clicks on page 2 or 3. Definitely in a lot smaller doses, but the quality of clicks are there, and you don't want to just keep putting all of your money on page 1, because that's going to hurt your conversion rate and things like the flywheel effect that we'll wrap up with. All that has an effect on your performance.
Absolutely. So where do you find this data? So instead of going through Amazon Seller Central Campaign Manager, clicking into each campaign, clicking into each ad group, making the changes manually line by line, I mean, that's not going to be very effective once you've built out a large campaign structure, and it's not going to allow you to apply these types of rules that we're talking about. So using the bulk file, it's located under bulk operations, download campaigns. So you can download this, and we recommend taking a look at that 30-day period, again, because it helps sort of get rid of the noise of the day-to-day or week-to-week. And let's look at an example here. So this is an example of a bulk operations report. And what you can do here, the real power of this report is you can make edits to this CSV in Excel and then upload it back into Seller Central. So you're really taking your work out of the one-by-one in Campaign Manager and taking it into Excel. You can do filtering and sorting, set up some formulas, and build some business rules around what we were talking about. Decide where your target is for ACOS. And say if your target's at 10%, let me go ahead and filter all of the keywords that have less than a 10% and increase the bid by 25%. And then look at the other side. Where am I not performing, and where can I lower bids? And making all of those changes here in Excel and then doing a bulk upload can save you hours and hours of time.
Yeah, so let's walk through a couple of examples so we are all on the same page with this. So take the first highlighted orange box. The goal here is you want to eliminate inefficient spend by decreasing bids. So like Joe said, maybe we have a 10% activity-based goal for this campaign. If you look over to the far right, this keyword has a 35% ACOS. So what you can do here is set up that logic so that 50 cents gets multiplied by a decrease of 25%, and then insert that bid there. Going down to the other orange box in the far right, that's a search term or a keyword that has a lot of spend but doesn't have any sales. So it's going to have a 0% ACOS, and what you want to do there is pause that keyword. It's been on for 30 days, if not more, has a lot of spend but no sales, right? So don't hold on to it. And what you can do here is you can delete enabled and just put in pause and upload that right back, and it will pause that keyword.
Right, and then on the other side, which we've been talking about the past few minutes, is let's double down on those winners and make sure we're not missing out on impressions, clicks, and sales. So you can take that 50-cent max bid that's resulted in an ACOS of 5% and increase it by 25 or 50% and see if you can capture more traffic for something that's working well. Any questions coming in, Alistair?
There's a lot of questions coming in. There definitely is a lot.
Let's talk about the flywheel effect, and then we'll hit the questions after the key takeaways.
Yeah, I'll get through the good ones and I'll bring them up.
Awesome. So we referenced this earlier in the presentation, but the advantage of running sponsored products isn't just the sales that you're getting within those campaigns. It's really you're increasing your exposure, you're getting more conversions, and you're helping your organic conversion, as your organic search ranking as well. So they really feed into each other, and as you're getting more and more rankings, you're going to get more and more exposure. So it's all about getting into this virtual cycle and continuing to grow.
Yeah, and organic sales are treated, in the same exact way as paid sales are, right?
What do you guys think of this one from Mark? He writes, as a hypothetical, if I bid really high, i.e. I'm guaranteed to be the highest bid, will I show for every single time that a search term is searched for? That is, the count of impressions in a day will be the actual search volume in that day. What do you guys think of that?
No. So bid price again is, it's not the end game, right? So just because you come in and say, I'm willing to bid $20 on every single keyword, Amazon does want to make sure that they're serving advertisements or products that the consumer wants to buy. It's the most sophisticated marketplace that puts the customer first.
Right. So Amazon is incentivized to deliver the product that they think the customer is most likely to purchase. So just by having a high bid, there's other factors that go into their decision around conversion rate.
And can we build on that just for a minute or two?
Yeah.
We touched on it earlier. Amazon as a business bets on the winners, right? That's their strategy. And Joe, you touched on before. I think it answers the question as well. Like the proximity of the to the search term, like the product itself relative to what you're looking for, and then of course faster turns. Those that are actually selling the best product. Are there, or maybe you can refine what I just said, or maybe add a couple of bullets there. Like what do you think that method is that Amazon's looking for?
Yeah, I mean they're just aligned with the customer to say, I want the person browsing Amazon.com to leave today with something in their shopping cart. And so they absolutely are betting on the winners. And they're looking at how many people are seeing your product page and how many people are converting. And that's both in advertising and organically. And the higher your conversion rate is, the more likely you are to show up at the top of the search.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions regarding this sort of relationship between organic and volume and the sponsored product campaigns. And it's obviously not transparent, because that is Amazon's secret sauce. We're talking about a very similar algorithm, of course, to sort of the Google search engine model or Facebook, or it's very, very complex. Just here's another one. It's, if we deliver a lot of clicks with low conversion rates and the overall conversion rate for the product falls, will that affect our keyword ranking negatively?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes in both ways, right? So it can help you and it can hurt you. So you don't want to be driving volume on an irrelevant term that's not converting for you. So that's the power of getting in there and monitoring these metrics, pulling down these bulk reports, and really understanding what your targets are and optimizing to those targets. So with that, let's take a look at the key takeaways from the presentation.
So let's summarize here, and then we have 4 or 5 minutes that we can open it up for some more questions. So key takeaway number 1, use both automatic and manual campaigns as part of an explore and exploit strategy. So if you remember back at the beginning of the presentation, set up those mirrored campaigns where you can easily move from automatic to manual campaigns, the keywords that you're pulling out that are winners. Takeaway number 2, refine keyword targeting to become more competitive and reduce spending inefficiencies. So if you have a broad term, find ways to make it phrase, make it exact, find out those ways to refine that keyword targeting, but also look to reduce inefficient spend through the use of negative keywords.
Yeah, and then like we were talking about, you want to make sure you're treating your keywords like a stock portfolio. This is something that's a volatile market that new people and new sellers are getting into every day. So you want to be monitoring these metrics, putting your money behind those winners, continuing to bid up what's converting well for you, and bringing those bids down if you're not seeing conversion into sales, and then ultimately pausing those keywords. And then the last thing that we just talked about was gaining efficiencies in this process. So there's a lot to think about, right, in the campaign structure, in all of the keywords, moving from automatic to manual, within manual, moving from broad to phrase to exact, and it doesn't stop there. So you're really able to take advantage of the bulk report by making changes across your entire account. And this gets you away from making decisions that you may feel good, or today I think that this looks like I should be bidding up or bidding down based on what I'm seeing in Campaign Manager. Get away from that and move to a process that you're doing each week, and you're executing and saying, here are my rules, these are my filters I'm looking at in Excel, I'm going to execute this plan. And I mean, that's how you're going to really drive efficiencies.
I'd add one just before we wrap up, and I think it's critical, because I think you've got to set a budget, right? Even if I can amend, I think the kind of the Joe Dube term about explore, and exploit, I would say set a budget, explore, exploit, learn, right? learn, take those learnings, and then sharpen the saw.
Absolutely.
Like I think that's the hard
I love
yards,
that,
right?
Andy. And I think it requires a lot of discipline
It does.
and consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just in our DNA as a company. I mean, a lot of Amazon selling is about discipline and measurement and repeating the same thing over again. It's
a continuous cycle.
It's so difficult
Sharpen
for
the
a
saw.
seller, though.
You have to
because
keep learning all those things.
Yeah, it is, and it's really difficult as a seller because you're worried about your product sourcing, negotiating with manufacturers, to have the discipline to be able to keep doing this and really getting into the metrics. I mean, it's tough.
And in addition to sending out the recording of this session, we've also prepared a one-sheeter of the key takeaways. So you can take that, print it out, and use that as your checklist each week when you're going through your sponsored products management.
And just wrapping, so everybody, thanks once again for attending. We know this is, we've been asked to do this, so we hope it's valuable. We're continuing to do these sessions nearly every 2 weeks now. So we've got another one coming up we got another webinar coming up on March 15th with some partners, Meridian and World First, so please join us for that. And then towards the end of the month, we'll be having another session around FBA strategies hosted by some folks here at Teikametrics. So I know we're just over time. Once again, everybody, thanks again for joining. Any questions that are left unanswered, we'll get those answered, and certainly reach out to us on Twitter, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. We're here to help in any way that we can. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, and the recording's going to go out very soon, so thank you so much for attending.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's great.